I never expected New Year's Eve to feel like a battlefield, but standing on that Minneapolis rooftop, champagne in hand, I realized it was. The countdown echoed around us. 10, 9, 8, lights reflecting off the frozen river below. My brother, Ethan, leaned over, grinning, already expecting to be the center of attention. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please subscribe now. Also let me know where you are watching from in the comments section. I took a deep breath. Just signed on a $1 million penthouse in D.C., I whispered to my cousin. Ethan froze. Then his head snapped toward me so fast his champagne sloshed over the rim. A penthouse. His voice cracked, disbelief mixing with anger. Where did you get that kind of money? The glass slipped from his fingers and shattered across the floor. Mom's laughter died midair, and Dad's hand froze halfway to his mouth. Cousin stared, jaws dropped. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and nervousness. This was the moment I had worked toward my entire life, every late-night job, every scholarship, every lonely achievement unrecognized. All the years of being overlooked, the birthdays ignored, the gifts smaller, the praise given to Ethan, I let it all hang in the air. Ethan's face turned red. The crowd went silent. Fireworks exploded above, but no one noticed. Tonight, the family would finally see me. The rooftop went quiet, like the city had stopped just to watch. Ethan's jaw hung open, eyes wide, hands trembling as he stared at me. I could almost hear the years of my silence echoing in that pause. Mom's smile faded. Her fingers pressed against her lips, mascara streaking from the tension in her eyes. Dad shifted uncomfortably, muttering something under his breath, trying to calm the storm he had ignored for so long. I wanted to say more, to let him feel a fraction of the frustration I had swallowed for years. But the words were heavy, packed with every birthday party I never had, every school award no one celebrated, every late-night job where I counted coins to survive. My cousin Taylor leaned closer. You did all this yourself? I nodded, chest tight. Every penny. Ethan's face went from shock to rage. You think money makes you better than me? I held his gaze, calm for the first time ever. It's not money. It's everything you took for granted, every opportunity, every privilege, every handout that I earned for myself. For the first time, the family saw me, not the quiet brother in the corner, but someone who had fought his way to the top. Ethan didn't answer. He stormed back from the table, leaving silence and shattered glass behind. I've always been the quiet one, the brother who stayed out of the spotlight. Ethan, he was the golden child. From the start, it seemed like everything came easy for him, and I was just there to watch. I remember our first day of school. Ethan had a brand new backpack, shiny shoes, and lunch packed by Mom herself. I carried a worn-out bag, my sneakers scuffed from running to catch the bus, and a peanut butter sandwich I had made myself. Parents smiled at him, praising every step. Me? They nodded politely and moved on. Every birthday, every holiday, every small victory followed the same pattern. Ethan's accomplishments were celebrated loudly, with parties, gifts, and attention. My successes were whispered over, tucked behind the curtain of family life. It wasn't that my parents didn't care, they just never seemed to notice me. I learned early to be independent, to rely on my own effort to get ahead. I studied late nights, worked odd jobs, and stacked small victories quietly. Each time I earned a scholarship, each time I finished a job successfully, it was just another pebble added to the invisible wall between me and the family attention Ethan soaked up. By the time I hit middle school, I understood the rules. Ethan got the praise, the opportunities, the spotlight. I got the lessons, the work, and the drive to succeed alone. Ethan's life was a world I could only observe from the sidelines. Private tutors, summer camps abroad, tennis lessons, music classes, you name it, he had it. Every weekend seemed to be an adventure carefully planned by Mom and Dad, while I stayed home, doing chores, studying, or working small jobs to save money. I remember him coming back from a 2-week tennis camp, his backpack stuffed with medals and souvenirs, sunburned and smiling like he had conquered the world. I had spent those same 2 weeks delivering newspapers before dawn, then washing dishes at the diner until the night rush ended, and falling asleep over my math homework. Parents never compared, at least not aloud, but the difference was obvious. Ethan's victories were celebrated publicly, documented with photos, videos, and stories shared with extended family. My victories were private, if anyone noticed at all. It wasn't just school or sports. Even in small things, he got preferential treatment. Sick day. He stayed home, cozy, with movies and breakfast in bed. I stayed in my room, nursing a cold, finishing homework by the dim light of a desk lamp. Every privilege, every handout, every small favor built his confidence, and widened the invisible gap between us. And all I could do was keep working, learning to fight for my own future without anyone noticing. Being invisible wasn't easy, but it taught me lessons Ethan would never need to learn. I learned to rely on myself, to plan, to work, and to survive without applause. While he received guidance and praise at every turn, I learned that nothing was handed to me, everything had to be earned. I remember asking for help once with a school project. Ethan's tutor would have been sent in immediately, while I got a shrug and a suggestion to figure it out. That shrug could have been crushing, but I turned it into motivation. I studied late into the night, researched online, and taught myself skills that would eventually become the foundation of my success. Birthdays, holidays, even small accomplishments slipped by unnoticed. I learned to celebrate alone, to store victories quietly, like treasures hidden in a secret chest. Each scholarship, each small raise for my part-time jobs, each promotion, was mine alone, and it made me stronger. Being invisible taught me patience and resilience. I watched Ethan flourish under parental support, but I learned the value of self-discipline, persistence, and ambition. Those lessons would one day turn the tables. The golden child might have the spotlight, but I had something far more powerful, the ability to succeed on my own terms. I got my first real job at 15, and it changed everything. While Ethan spent summers traveling abroad or attending tennis clinics, I was flipping pancakes at a local diner, delivering newspapers before dawn, and helping neighbors with odd jobs. Each dollar I earned was a small victory, a step toward independence. Mornings were the hardest. I rode my bike in the freezing cold, bundle wrapped against the wind, delivering newspapers to sleepy houses while the city still slumbered. Afternoons were spent at the diner, balancing trays of coffee and toast while learning to keep a calm smile under pressure. Tips were small, but I saved every penny, folding coins into a jar hidden in my drawer. Evenings were my own. I studied, worked on school assignments, or practiced skills I knew would matter later. I watched Ethan's life from the corner of my mind, his trips, his trophies, his praise, and I didn't envy him. Instead, I used it as fuel. I learned responsibility early. Most importantly, I learned that no one would hand me my future. If I wanted success, I would have to build it myself, brick by brick, shift by shift, lesson by lesson. And I was ready. Birthdays were the clearest example of the gap between Ethan and me. His were grand events, like scenes from a magazine. The year he turned 16, the entire Afton Hills Country Club was reserved for him. A professional DJ spun tracks while friends arrived in rented limos. The tables groaned under trays of seafood and desserts. Mom and Dad presented him with a brand new red convertible, keys gleaming under the string lights. The photos were perfect, every moment documented, every smile framed. My 16th birthday came 3 years later. For friends squeezed into our living room, board games scattered across the floor, and a pizza from the corner store. The gift was a used laptop I had helped pick out online, scratched but functional, and a card with a handwritten note from Mom. We laughed, ate, and that was it. No fuss. No party. No cameras. I didn't feel envy, I felt resolve. Every extravagant gift, every well-planned celebration Ethan received became a reminder of what I had to earn for myself. While he relied on privileges, I learned to value hard work, patience, and the satisfaction of achieving something without applause. That quiet birthday, surrounded by friends who cared for me, felt more meaningful than any country club ever could. Summers always made the divide between Ethan and me painfully clear. While he boarded planes to Italy, Spain, or tennis camps, I stayed home working 2 jobs to save for college and investing hours in self-study. I remember one July, Ethan sent postcards from Rome, full of photos of ancient ruins, gelato, and gondolas. His stories overflowed with adventure and privilege. I smiled when reading them, but inside, I felt a quiet determination. I couldn't change what he had been given, but I could shape what I earned. My mornings began delivering newspapers before dawn, navigating empty streets with a heavy bag over my shoulder. Afternoons were spent washing dishes at the diner or babysitting neighborhood kids, earning tips I tucked away carefully. Evenings were for schoolwork or reading books borrowed from a library, preparing for a future I knew I had to build alone. It was exhausting, and sometimes lonely, but I didn't resent it. Every shift, every mile pedaled, every coin saved added to something far bigger than a trip abroad. While Ethan's summer adventures gave him confidence, my summers taught me discipline, resilience, and independence. And I knew that one day, the scales would tip, and this long summer of work would be worth everything. College was another stage where the family favoritism showed itself clearly. Ethan got his pick, a private university with small classes, a personal tutor, and dorms paid in full. I, on the other hand, relied on scholarships and part-time jobs, carving a path I knew no one else would pave for me. I earned a full scholarship at the state university, covering tuition, books, and even lab fees. I also took on a work-study job in the library, helping students research while balancing my own classes. Nights were long, mornings early, but I thrived in the challenge. Every assignment completed, every test aced, every dollar earned felt like proof that I could succeed on my own. Ethan, meanwhile, struggled to choose a major. Whenever he faltered, Mom and Dad jumped in, refunding extra courses, hiring tutors, rearranging schedules. His setbacks were short-lived, quickly patched by their wealth and influence. I watched silently, never asking for help. No one checked my progress. No one fretted over my grades or finances. But I learned to trust myself. I learned that independence mattered more than applause. And with every late-night study session and paycheck saved, I built the foundation of something no one could take away, my future. College pushed me harder than anything before. Between classes, late-night library shifts, and weekend jobs, I barely had time to breathe. I delivered newspapers at dawn, worked in the cafeteria at noon, and studied into the early hours. Every dollar I earned went straight into savings or textbooks. Sleep was a luxury I often sacrificed. Ethan's life looked entirely different. If he needed extra tutoring or guidance, his parents were there instantly. If a project required money for materials or software, they covered it. He navigated college with safety nets at every step, while I learned to patch my own. Some nights, the exhaustion threatened to break me. I'd stare at the ceiling, thinking about the gap between us, him with endless support, me with only my own grit. But those moments became fuel. I learned to plan ahead, to anticipate obstacles, and to solve problems on my own. Every challenge built resilience. Every shift at work strengthened discipline. Every exam passed without help reminded me I was capable. The harder the road, the sharper my skills, and the closer I felt to the day when my efforts would speak louder than Ethan's privileges ever could. By sophomore year, cracks began to show in Ethan's carefully managed life. Majors shifted, classes were dropped, and he struggled to keep up with coursework that had seemed easy at first. Whenever he faltered, Mom and Dad jumped in, covering tuition for new classes, hiring tutors, and rearranging schedules to make sure he never truly failed. I watched from afar, quietly noting the difference. I had learned to solve my own problems, to earn my grades, and to manage my money and time. Ethan had always depended on support, and now, when his confidence wavered, he had no idea how to stand on his own. I felt a strange mix of pity and vindication. I had worked tirelessly while being invisible, building my future brick by brick. Now, the gap between us was not just opportunity, it was preparation. I knew I could thrive where he stumbled. While Ethan struggled to find his footing, I was steadily moving forward. Internships, scholarships, and small promotions gave me skills, confidence, and experience he hadn't yet learned to value. One day, the tables would turn, and Ethan would realize that life isn't about what's given, it's about what you fight for. Even as I climbed, the family's attention stayed firmly on Ethan. Every phone call, every visit, every conversation revolved around his needs. Mom asked about his additions, his classes, his projects. Dad offered advice on resumes and networking events, always ready to step in. Meanwhile, my successes went unnoticed, quietly celebrated only in my own heart. It was frustrating, but I had grown used to it. I didn't complain or demand recognition. I focused on building something that no one could give me, real independence. Every late-night spreadsheet, every project completed, every penny invested added to a foundation my family would one day see, and couldn't ignore. Ethan still stumbled. Jobs came and went. Projects failed. Each time, Mom and Dad rescued him, keeping him afloat. And each time, I reminded myself that I didn't need rescue. I didn't need applause. My victories would be louder than any handout. Watching from the sidelines, I realized the truth. Spoiling someone doesn't guarantee success, and favoritism doesn't teach strength. I had been underestimated, overlooked, and ignored. But that neglect had a hidden benefit. It forced me to develop resilience, focus, and determination. One day, I would stand above Ethan, not because they handed me the throne, but because I earned it. My first real break came during my junior year of college. I landed an internship at a small venture firm downtown, the kind of opportunity most of my peers only dreamed of. While Ethan struggled to find stability in his own college and part-time jobs, I was suddenly in a world where skills, initiative, and intelligence mattered more than who your parents were. The early mornings and late nights I had grown used to paid off instantly. I reviewed financial reports, analyzed startup proposals, and learned to spot opportunities where others saw risk. My boss noticed my attention to detail and gave me responsibilities that went beyond any intern's role. I thrived on it, hungry for more. Every small success felt like a quiet triumph over the years of invisibility. The long hours at the diner, the newspapers, the self-study sessions, all of it had trained me for this moment. I wasn't just catching up to Ethan, I was surpassing him, building skills and confidence he could never buy or borrow. By the end of the summer, I had a clear sense. My future wasn't just in the city, it was in control, and nothing or no one would stop me from taking it. After graduation, my career took off faster than I ever imagined. The firm recognized my dedication and promoted me to a junior analyst position within months. I spent my days evaluating startup investments, building financial models, and learning to negotiate deals that could make or break small companies. While Ethan floated from job to job, unsure where he fit, I was steadily climbing. Each project I led, each deal I closed, added to my confidence and my bank account. I started investing on the side, carefully allocating small sums into tech stocks and index funds, watching my savings grow quietly but surely. My independence became my strength. No one guided me, no one rescued me, and no one owed me anything. Every achievement was mine, hard-earned and unshakable. Ethan may have had privilege, but I had experience, discipline, and the hunger to succeed. By the end of my second year, I had more responsibility than many senior analysts. The firm trusted me with larger portfolios, client calls, and even lead negotiations. I realized then that the invisible brother had become unstoppable. And deep down, I knew the day would come when Ethan would see that he had been outrun, not by luck, but by relentless effort and determination. While I built momentum in my career, Ethan began to falter. After graduating a year late, he bounced between short-term jobs, freelance videography, retail management, even barista shifts. Nothing stuck. Each role seemed promising, yet every opportunity ended in disappointment. Mom and Dad tried to intervene, covering his rent, car payments, and occasional bills, but the safety net couldn't fix his lack of experience or discipline. The loft in St. Louis Park, once cozy and convenient, became a temporary stopover that lasted months. He moved from friend's couch to temporary rentals, juggling unpaid bills and credit card debt. I watched silently, my mind calculating. All the years I had been invisible, overlooked, and underestimated had prepared me for this moment. Ethan's failures were a reflection of privilege without preparation, opportunity without effort. Meanwhile, I had the skills, money, and independence to shape my life without reliance. The difference was clear. Ethan relied on handouts, while I thrived on self-earned victories. Each misstep he made reinforced my resolve. One day, the world, and our family, would see the results of true effort. And when that day came, Ethan would finally realize that being the golden child doesn't guarantee a crown. It was a crisp morning in April when I closed on my first major purchase, a $1 million penthouse in Washington, D.C. Floor-to-ceiling windows, sleek modern design, a view of the city skyline, it was everything I had worked for, every sacrifice and late-night grind condensed into this single achievement. I remember holding the keys in my hand, feeling a rush of satisfaction. This wasn't just a home, it was proof that years of effort, discipline, and persistence could create something tangible, something Ethan could never take for granted. I thought back to every overlooked milestone, every quiet victory that went unnoticed, every birthday and holiday where I had been ignored. Each memory fueled the fire inside me. Ethan had lived in a world of handouts and praise, but I had built my empire alone. Mom and Dad would hear about this purchase eventually. And when they did, so would Ethan. I imagined his shock, the disbelief, the anger. For the first time, the family would see me not as the quiet brother in the corner, but as someone who had outperformed, outlasted, and outsmarted the golden child. The penthouse wasn't just a home, it was the first move in my long, carefully plotted reckoning. New Year's Eve arrived, and I found myself on a rooftop in Minneapolis, champagne in hand, ready to drop the news that would finally shift the balance. The city buzzed around us, fireworks preparing to light the sky, but all I could focus on was the moment ahead. I leaned toward my cousin Taylor, voice low but confident. "I just signed on a $1 million penthouse in D.C., I said. The words hung in the cold night air. Ethan froze. His champagne trembled in his hand, spilling onto the floor. $1 million in D.C.? Where did you?" His voice cracked, disbelief and rage colliding. The glass shattered, and silence swallowed the rooftop. Mom and Dad looked ashen. Uncle Lloyd stood, chair scraping against the tiles, eyes locked on me. Every face turned toward the quiet brother they had overlooked for so long. "You've been hurting Ronald from the start and never noticed," Uncle Lloyd said steadily. The fireworks erupted overhead, brilliant and loud, yet no one looked up. I let the years of neglect, the silent victories, and the struggles all pour into that moment. Ethan didn't speak. He stormed off, leaving shattered glass and stunned silence behind. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. The tide had turned. 3 months later, I relocated permanently to Washington, D.C. The penthouse was mine, every inch a symbol of years of hard work and quiet determination. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city at dawn, a reminder that I had earned this life while Ethan was still struggling to find his footing. The first thing I did was block Mom, Dad, and Ethan on my phone. Emails were deleted, distribution lists pruned. Professional contacts remained, family connections vanished. I didn't do it out of cruelty, it was self-preservation. The years of being overlooked, underestimated, and ignored had built a quiet rage that demanded boundaries. I furnished the penthouse minimally, letting the cityscape and sunlight dominate. Work consumed me, conference calls with investors, due diligence on startups, and meetings that shaped my growing venture fund. Every decision, every deal reinforced my independence. Meanwhile, news from home trickled in. Ethan lost his last gig coordinating events at a local gallery. Credit card debt mounted. Mom and Dad, finally unable to cover his lifestyle, sold the family home and downsized, leaving him scrambling for stability. For the first time, the scales had tipped completely. My victories were no longer silent. They reshaped the lives of those who had ignored me for so long. By the next quarter, my venture fund was gaining serious traction. I had $12 million under management, anchored by investments in fintech and sustainable startups. Each deal I closed, each new partner I secured, reinforced the life I had built through grit and independence. From my penthouse terrace, I reviewed pitch decks as the sunrise painted the D.C. skyline in gold and pink. The city's hum became the soundtrack to my success, a sharp contrast to Ethan's reality back home. Ethan's life, once cushioned by my parents' support, was unraveling. Credit card debt soared to $28,000. His SUV, once leased and insured by Dad, sat repossessed in an impound lot. The loft in St. Louis Park was gone, sold to cover bills. Friends' couches became his temporary homes, deliveries and side hustles barely keeping him afloat. I didn't gloat. This wasn't about cruelty. It was a natural consequence of choices, preparation, and effort. My journey had been hard, lonely, and unacknowledged for years. Now, the contrast between us was undeniable. From every empty milestone, every ignored victory, I had built a life Ethan could not replicate. The silent brother had become unstoppable, and the golden child finally faced the reality of a crown lost, not through sabotage, but through neglect of discipline and hard work. By the end of the year, I had fully established myself in D.C. My venture fund continued to grow, attracting top-tier investors who trusted my track record. Board meetings, term sheets, and equity negotiations replaced family dinners. Every decision reinforced the life I had meticulously built: independent, profitable, and untouchable. The penthouse wasn't just a home, it was my fortress. Minimalist furniture and open spaces reflected clarity and control. Morning runs along the city streets became my meditation, while evenings were spent reviewing portfolios and planning the next expansion. Freedom tasted like sunlight pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows and calls that resulted in tangible outcomes, not opinions or handouts. Meanwhile, Ethan struggled further. His temporary jobs ended, and the few side hustles he tried never took off. Mom and Dad had downsized, cutting the safety net entirely. The golden child who had once ruled the family found himself scrambling, alone, and unprepared. I realized then that independence was more than wealth. It was control, discipline, and the ability to shape your own destiny. While Ethan relied on handouts and constant support, I had created a life that no one could dismantle. The quiet brother, once invisible, had become the one running the show. It didn't take long for Ethan to reach out. Calls, texts, even emails, each one carefully timed to tug at memories of family and shared history. But I didn't respond. Not a single word. I watched his messages pile up on my phone, the notifications buzzing like echoes of the past I had left behind. I remembered every overlooked birthday, every silent achievement, every moment of invisibility. Responding now would undo years of building myself from nothing. Mom and Dad tried to intervene too, pleading for me to answer. I blocked their numbers as well. It wasn't anger, it was clarity. The family that ignored my struggles while supporting Ethan could no longer influence my life. I had a path to walk, and it did not include hand-holding or favors from them. Ethan's calls grew desperate. He begged for guidance, for money, for a lifeline. I didn't deny him the truth. He had created this reality with his reliance and lack of initiative. It was harsh, but life had always been harsh for me too, and I had survived. In D.C., overlooking the city, I felt a sense of peace. For the first time, I controlled the narrative. The invisible brother was no longer a shadow. He was untouchable, untethered, and unstoppable. Ethan's world continued to crumble. His few attempts at work failed, and side hustles collapsed under pressure. The loft was gone, the SUV repossessed, and credit card debt loomed over him like a storm cloud. Even friends' couches were no longer reliable, forcing him into nights of uncertainty and cold floors. Mom and Dad, now on fixed incomes in a cramped apartment, could no longer bail him out. The safety net that had cradled him for years was gone. They had downsized, sold their home, and tightened their budgets, leaving Ethan scrambling for survival. For the first time, he understood what I had lived with all along: hardship, uncertainty, and the necessity of self-reliance. But unlike me, he had no foundation, no experience managing adversity. Every misstep added weight to his failures, while I watched from afar, grounded in the life I had meticulously built. In D.C., I reviewed my portfolio with a sense of quiet triumph. My fund continued to grow, my penthouse reflected my accomplishments, and my independence was absolute. The invisible brother had become unstoppable. Ethan, once the golden child, was finally learning the price of reliance. Life had a cruel symmetry. What had once been overlooked was now undeniable. My effort, my discipline, and my success had rewritten the rules. By now, I had fully cemented my place in the world I had fought so hard to build. My venture fund had expanded into multiple sectors, with $25 million under management. Investors trusted my judgment, startups sought my guidance, and every decision I made created tangible growth. The penthouse in D.C. had become more than a home, it was my headquarters. Meetings, strategy sessions, and client calls all took place against a backdrop of glass walls and city views. Minimalist furniture and open spaces reflected clarity, control, and focus. I moved through each day with the confidence of someone who had earned every victory. Ethan remained a shadow of the brother he once was. Credit card debt, failed jobs, and lost opportunities marked his life. The golden child who had once ruled the family now struggled to survive. Mom and Dad, humbled by their downsized lives, had no power to change it. I never gloated. My satisfaction came quietly, rooted in discipline, preparation, and perseverance. I had turned years of neglect into unstoppable momentum. The world, and my family, could see the truth. The invisible brother was the one running the show. Independence wasn't just freedom, it was dominance, and I had earned it without compromise. Ethan finally began to understand the weight of his choices, or lack thereof. He had relied on handouts, safety nets, and constant support for years, and now the structure that had cradled him was gone. Credit card debt, failed jobs, and eviction notices became daily reminders of a life unprepared. I watched from D.C. as he scrambled, helpless to fix the consequences he had ignored for so long. No calls, no interventions, no family favors could undo the results of years spent coasting. Every mistake, every failure, every opportunity he had squandered was now visible, undeniable, and irreversible. Mom and Dad had aged faster than I remembered. Downsizing had forced sacrifices, leaving them with less comfort and more worry. They tried to guide him, but their efforts were limited, and Ethan finally realized that discipline, planning, and effort were not optional. They were the foundation of success. From my penthouse, I reflected on the years I had endured, the invisibility, and the relentless work that had built my empire. The contrast between us was stark, my victories hard-earned, his privileges wasted. Ethan had learned, at last, that life doesn't reward entitlement. Only those who act, persist, and endure are crowned in reality, not by favoritism, but by effort. By the time the year ended, my life had reached a peak I had long envisioned. The venture fund under my management had grown to $50 million, securing deals in technology, energy, and biotech. Each success reinforced the life I had built with my own hands: discipline, strategy, and relentless focus. The penthouse stood as a monument to years of struggle and quiet victories. From the terrace, I could see the city bustling below, a constant reminder that I had earned every bit of my independence. No one could take it away. No one could challenge the foundation I had built. Ethan, once the golden child, was now a reflection of consequences. Jobs gone, debts mounting, temporary living arrangements, and humbled parents, all painted a vivid picture of how reliance and privilege without effort crumble. He reached out one last time, but I remained silent. My silence wasn't cruelty, it was closure. I had turned years of invisibility into power, years of neglect into independence, and every challenge into a stepping stone. I was no longer the quiet brother. I had claimed my crown, not by inheritance, not by luck, but by proving my worth. The world had finally recognized what my family had overlooked for too long. Ronald Noah had arrived, unstoppable and untouchable. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching.